After suffering so many losses on the battlefield, after losing half of its holdings to the invading barbarians, after being swarmed by endless hordes of invaders, and after losing the beating heart of the empire, the Western Romans were in shambles, their lands disconnected, their provinces still lacking any proper defending forces, and their resources severely drained. Something had to change, or what remains will join what was lost. But that change was still on hold, as the empire did not catch a single breath after losing Rome. While Italy was being invaded, Africa was under continued Berber attacks. The Gaetolians had captured Thapsus, while the Moors captured Tingi. The Gaetolians moved north and laid siege to the last remaining Roman city in Africa, Carthage. Simultaneously in Europe, the empire was also under a lot of pressure. The rogue Gallic general considered the fall of Rome as a sign that the empire was dead and declared an attempt to revive his own version of the empire. So he took advantage of the lack of sufficient defending forces to take over 2 towns in Gaul. His army tried taking over Vienna too, but stumbled upon a large Alemanni raiding force. His army lost the engagement and was forced to retreat, while Vienna itself was sacked and burned to the ground. The Vandals sent an army into Gaul, laying siege to Massilia where the remnants of a defeated Roman army were staying. The Romans wanted to relieve the city, but were still busy with rebuilding their forces in West Gaul, and so the city fell eventually. Salona, the last Illyrian city in Roman hands, finally fell to the Visigoths after a long and grueling siege. But the Visigoths weren't staying idle during the siege. They had already colonized the ruins of Aquileia, took some territory from the Eastern Empire, and after taking Salona they headed straight for Ravenna, the new capital of the empire after Mediolanum fell to the Alamanes. More bad news came from Africa. Carthage, the city that the Romans paid so much in blood to conquer in the past, fell to the Gaetolians after little resistance from the small garrison inside it. The Saxons sent an army to take Tarentum. The garrison sallied out to meet them and surprisingly managed to chase them away. Back in Gaul, the Romans sent a newly formed army east to take back what the Vandals took. They met them in battle near Massilia, and the result was a costly victory for the Romans. They tried sieging Massilia afterwards, but they had insufficient numbers, and a Vandal relief army forced them to retreat. While the Romans were busy with the Vandals, the Ebdonoi sailed from Britain and landed in northwest Gaul, and took Turonum. They continued their attack south. The Romans met them in battle and came out victorious. The Romans wanted to follow up on their victory, but they had to deal with another Vandal attack, after which they were too exhausted to attack. Ravenna, which had been under siege for nearly 2 years, was starved into submission by the Visigoths, forcing the Romans to set up temporary capital in Burdigala. The Romans didn't even get a chance to catch their breath, as 2 large armies, one Hunnic and one Alemanni, descended upon them. The Alemanni army headed straight to the new capital, crushing any attempts at resistance on its way, while the Hunnic army went on a rampage, sacking town after town until its coffers were full of loot, carrying back that loot away from Roman lands. For now. The Roman emperor, who was trapped within the capital, sent calls for help to Iberia. The calls were answered and an army marched from Cordoba and crossed the Pyrenees. However, suddenly the army stopped. The army leader, Lucius Marcellus, ordered the army back, telling his soldiers it was a hopeless fight. In reality, this was a coup. He went back and set up a new capital at Cordoba. With no help in sight, the old capital fell in Alaman hands, and the emperor was killed in the battle. And after news reached Lucius, he declared himself the new emperor. Lucius was a corrupt emperor, one that is indifferent to the empire's dire situation. This was to become evident with the upcoming events. The Ostrogoths, who had been migrating ever since the Huns destroyed their homes, made their way into what remained of Roman Italy. They attacked Tarentum and, after moderate resistance, captured the city. Not long after, Rhegium was in their hands too. The Alamans didn't stop at Burdigala. They moved into Spain and captured more territory while simultaneously advancing in Gaul. A Saxon army took off from Italy towards Spain. On their way they sacked Corsica and then landed near Sigobriga, capturing it and making it a base for their attack on Tarraco. The Ostrogoths went into Sicily to capture the island, but as they approached Syracuse, they ran into a Gaetolian army that sailed from Africa with the same intent as them. The Gaetolians offered splitting the island between them, but the Ostrogoths refused, and a battle ensued, where the Ostrogoths overpowered their African foes. With no defenses to speak of, Syracuse quickly fell in Gothic hands. And while Tarraco did have defenses and a sizable garrison, they were still no match for their Saxon attackers, leading to the city's eventual fall. The Saxon army headed straight south towards Carthago Nova, while a Moorish army landed in Malacca with the intent of attacking Cordoba. Emperor Lucius called upon one of his experienced generals and gave him whatever forces he could muster to deal with these invasions that were drawing dangerously close to his palace. General Quintus went after the Saxons, driving them away with moderate casualties. He went back to lift the Moors' siege of Cordoba. Although the Moors outnumbered his forces, he still managed to not only win, but totally destroy their army. Although victorious, this army was too exhausted to carry any more attacks, and so it went back into the capital for replenishment. A while back, the Franks had been kicked out of their homes in Germania by the Jutes. Escaping into the empire, they wanted an isolated and secure place to settle in, so they went into the mountainous region in North Iberia. They settled into the northmost unprotected town, then formed an army and went south to secure more land for their people. Meanwhile, the Ostrogoths captured another city from the Romans, while the Alamans did the same in Iberia. The emperor refused a request by General Quintus to launch a counterattack, saying it's not the right time yet, which frustrated the general. Over the next year, the invasions continued. The Alamans moved further south, capturing Toledo, while the Ostrogoths captured Palma, firmly isolating the empire in a corner of Iberia. Yet another blow came with the fall of Bracara in the hands of the Franks. The Saxons regrouped and launched another attack at Carthago Nova, putting it once again under siege. Quintus was fed up with the emperor's lack of care about the dire situation the empire is facing, so he used his relative popularity to stage a coup, deposing the emperor and locking him up. Afterwards, Emperor Quintus started gathering every soldier he could muster to deal with the crisis at hand. He went after Malacca first, and since the Moors were busy fighting the Gaetolians in Africa, he easily captured it. He then went to reclaim Carthago Nova from the Saxons, battling their army on the way and defeating it. The city was reclaimed peacefully as it opened the gates to its liberators. He headed back west to deal with a Frankish incursion, which he successfully did. He then headed north to secure the northern flank of the capital, which he did by capturing Toledo. Just when the empire seemed on the verge of complete destruction, a charismatic and brilliant general and emperor brings it back from the brink. Will he be able to maintain this momentum and reclaim more lost lands for the empire, or is this just a temporary recovery that will ultimately end with the empire's demise? Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the second part of this series on West Rome. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe with the bell turned on if you want to see the third part of this story. I'll see you in the next video.